Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The World We Share, a global conversation. I am Dr. Barrett Matthews, along with my lovely, talented, and gifted co-host, Dr. Natalie Forrest. Natalie, how are you today?
It's an awesome day because I get to talk with you.
See, flattery will get you everywhere.
Uh-huh. Exactly.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for that. But I mean, I'm excited. This is our second episode. It was a great episode last week. We had a really good time, and we had some good feedback from people who posted in our groups about their comments and suggestions about other episodes and other topics we can talk about. And for those of you who don't know, The World We Share is a podcast about the world that we share and about how things that are going on in the world affect us as human beings and how it changes the way we think and changes the way we communicate with one another. And we want to make sure that Natalie and I bring that to you guys.
Absolutely. And, it's important because we're talking about the world we share. And as I said, in the previous episode, you and I were bringing up topics that come across our sight, our vision. That doesn't mean that there's not more. And some of the topics we're discussing are big topics that they can have subtopics. And if you have ideas, please keep sending them to us. We will get to them. We have a long list.
Yeah, yes. And like she said, please send it to us because it's not about Natalie and I, because it's the world we share. So we want to make sure that you are a part of this and you're engaging and letting us know what's on your mind and on your heart so that we can share that with the world and hopefully help us all to become a better place as a whole. So Natalie, what are we talking about today?
Even though we're smiling and it's all in the way that we look at things, today we're going to address the topic of homelessness. And that's a huge topic. So as before, we're going to address a few sub items under that, see where the conversation goes, because there is not one country in the world that is not affected by some kind of homelessness.
Wow, that's true. That's true. And before we get into that, guys, we want to make sure we let you know that the World We Share is brought to you by Media Boss Pro. Media Boss Pro, if you are a business owner and you want to have your business with more visibility, more profitability, you want to check out Media Boss Pro and make sure that we can get you in more media. So with that being said, Natalie, let's take it away.
Absolutely. Thank you. Homelessness is a global issue. It is not related only to how rich or how poor, how first world, second world, third world, fourth world a country is. It's everywhere. And if we're looking at, is it everywhere? Just to think about a little bit of data from actually this year, 2023. So there was a study done asking in various countries of the world, have you ever been homeless? In the UK, for example, 7.7% said, yes, I have been. In the United States, 6.2%. Italy, 4%. Belgium, 3.4%. Germany, 2.4%. I could go on like this. So that's why I'm saying it's not an issue only related to third world countries by any means. It's a global issue and it affects everybody. One thing that's very dear to my heart, for example, is homelessness of young people. Yes. A dear friend of mine works on that, and we don't always recognize homelessness.
No.
There are some obvious signs. You walk around a city and you see the people who happen to have the fate right now of being homeless. You see them sitting there, you see them asking for money, and sometimes, they have shopping carts with their stuff, especially when there are natural disasters and other not so good things happening. But you don't always see it.
No.
So I used to teach at a community college, right? And I was not always able to tell whether the students in front of me were homeless or not,
Right.
but some are. And so, how do you recognize that? Yeah, you can't say because they're wearing the same clothes every day. That's what young people do. They have their favorite piece of clothing. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, they would even come in pajamas.
Yeah.
So, it's not that, but it is the effect that this has. And if a young person, for example, is trying to come to school, there are some countries in which you are required to come to school. In
Yes.
others, it's more lenient. You know, you
Yes.
have homeschooling and so forth. And I'm going to let you talk for a second. I just want to bring up that if it was not a world issue, we would not have World Homeless Day. Now,
Right.
don't get me wrong, there are lots of days,
Yeah.
that I don't
Yeah.
understand why we have them.
I know.
But the 10th of October every year is World Homeless Day. And I'm just going to give you some data as of October 2023 for the United States. 1 in every 588 Americans is homeless.
Mm.
18%, this is the HUD information 2018, are
Hmm.
chronically homeless. And here comes some of the most devastating things. 7% of unaccompanied youth under 25 and 7% of veterans. And that's just in the United
Hmm.
States.
Yeah. And it's I wanted to talk on something else on it, but you got me with the children. That's the thing, because like you said, some of them are going to school every day and they have no home to go to. I remember seeing a video of a kid studying under a street light
Mm-hmm.
because he had no home to go to and he had to see in order to do his homework. And I know some people watching and listening, sometimes you're thinking, well, that doesn't affect me. That's not my problem. But it is your problem
Mm-hmm.
because once again, this is the world we share. And there's a trickle down effect to everything. Because when you find that someone who may have stolen something from you and you're upset and you can't believe that these people would steal from you, well, understand that's a trickle down effect
Mm-hmm.
because homelessness can easily lead to starvation. And when you need the basics to live, food, clothing, and shelter, you will do what you have to do to survive because survival is our main instinct.
Mm-hmm.
And that trickles down to you. It trickles down to all of us. And it's one of those things that we have to, we not just have to, we can help it.
Mm-hmm.
We can help. I mean, think about the city in which you live in or the area in which you live in, about how many abandoned homes there are. Think about how many vacant homes there are right now. People aren't being used because I want to make sure I can use it to get more money. Think about the tiny home communities being built.
Mm-hmm.
Think about mobile home parks because there's so many places that people can go.
Mm-hmm.
Or think about the commercial buildings that are empty that could be used as shelters. There's so many now, and that brings up another point, Natalie. That in that same vein is that with a lot of the homeless right now, there's a lot of pride that
Mm-hmm.
is at stake because some of them don't want to go into the shelters. And part of it is because they're not treated well in
Mm-hmm.
some of the shelters are not treated well. And I'm not, if you run a shelter, I'm not criticizing you personally. I'm just saying this in some, but you already know if you run a shelter, you know that in some of them people aren't treated well.
Right.
Because just because you're homeless does not mean you don't deserve dignity.
Mm-hmm.
It does not mean you don't deserve respect. It's a situation that has happened to you. And I don't know the reasons. I don't need to know the reasons. I just know it's something that I don't think should exist. I live here in the U.S. and I remember hearing when we did a space shuttle launch.
Mm-hmm.
It cost I don't know how many billions of dollars just to do the launch.
Yeah.
Just to do the launch. And all I thought was, wow, we could be making sure some people have homes. Mm-hmm. Just to do that launch. Something that took a few seconds. And don't get me wrong, it took months and months to plan. But right. I'm just saying that I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just think we have bigger issues on the earth than up in space.
Than above the earth.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Now, I think you bring up a very important point, and this is why I mentioned, it's a global issue. The examples that you brought, of course, are US based, and I know you've also traveled the world. Mm-hmm. Every country handles it a little bit differently.
Yeah.
And for example, we could, in the US, there is less of a governmental setup, but a lot of nonprofit, because people care about the world we share. And they understand that if there are homeless people, it doesn't just affect that person, but there are, like you said, possible crime, possible violence. Then they're not getting the education maybe in young people or even in older people who may have not had the chance earlier to get an education. What is the impact of that on the society, on economy? And so that is one aspect. In some other countries like Germany and Europe in general, there's a bit more of the governmental oversight of trying to provide. And yet, and the statistics that I mentioned before, even in these countries, you do have homelessness. And then you start wondering, well, how can you have homelessness if we have a social security system, a social safety net? And that is where I think you're very much on point. Sometimes it's people don't know how to get help. Yeah. Sometimes it is people don't want to admit that they need help.
Yeah.
I mean, do you, as a parent, if you're homeless, for example, do you want to have your kid mention to their, school principal that you're homeless? Or does the kid then worries about being treated differently by their classmates, by their teachers?
Or taken from their parent?
Yes. That's
because that's another thing. If you can't provide a home for your for your kid, then guess what? The state or the government may take that child away from you. So you tell your kid, don't mention this. Don't tell them it's going to take you away from me. Kid doesn't want to be taken from their parents, so they keep quiet.
Of course.
They keep quiet. And then they come back to you and you have to, live wherever you live, sleep wherever you sleep. It's one of those things that I just remember when I went to the Dominican Republic. Now, these children, they had a home. It was a small shanty. They had a home. But I remember we were driving by in a Jeep. We were coming from an excursion. And these kids were chasing us with flowers in their hand because they wanted us to buy a flower from them. And I'm not lying, Natalie. They were naked.
Yeah.
They were chasing us naked. And the tour guide, who was Dominican himself, he said, do not give them money. And we were like, well, why not? They need help. He said, because if they come home with money, the parents will send them out there again the next day and they won't go to school.
Oh, yes.
And it's like I said, you don't know everybody's dynamic. You don't know the things surrounding their situation. So when we're talking about someone who does not have a home, you don't know why they don't have a home. There's so many things in the backstory that you don't know about. And it's not up to you to judge. It's just our job to help in any way we can. Even if you can't provide a home, if you can help them with a meal, whatever. If you can, just give them some shoes, a jacket, a shirt, some socks. Because they say that's the one thing that the homeless people need more than anything is socks.
Yes. Yes.
And so it's just something like that. If you can help in any way, just do so. It's just it doesn't cost a lot for just to help somebody.
Yeah.
And you never know. Here's the thing. We've heard stories of people who were homeless that ended up being phenomenal pillars of the community and society and done some great things in this world. And sometimes it leads back to the one person who did something for them. one person. And they always call him an angel because that person just reached out and did
Right.
something nice for them.
Yeah.
So that person can be you.
Yeah. And it is, doing something. I recall, obviously we're now in Hamburg, Germany, but there are a lot of, not a lot, but there are some homeless people, and we've got a public transportation, which works very well.
Mm-hmm.
I have to put that in. And sometimes, some of the homeless people get on the
Mm-hmm.
metro, the public metro,
Mm-hmm.
and they ask there for help. I want to mention that for two reasons. Number one, there was this one gentleman who came in. He clearly had to get up his pride and his muster up the courage, I should say, to talk. And then he said, "Please don't look away. I am a human being. Even
Mm.
if you cannot give me anything, please recognize me as a human being."
Mm.
I mean, that made me, obviously cry.
Yeah.
Um, and then I had another lady. I was on the train. This was a little more, maybe 6, 7 months ago. I was on the train with my girl. We were taking her to an activity, and there comes a woman who's also homeless, and she didn't have a great voice, but she didn't just want to beg for money, so she sang a little song. And my daughter said, "Wow, that's beautiful." And we gave her a little bit of money, and the lady came up and looked at my daughter, looked her straight in the eye and said, "Keep doing what you're doing. Don't ever mess up like I did.
Mm.
I can't get back right now. I need help. But you just do what you're doing. Keep studying," because she had a book. "Keep
Mm.
studying. You're going to be awesome." And of course, my daughter started crying. And
Mm.
that was the advice from, heart to heart.
Yes. Yes.
It was very, very moving. And the last thing I'll mention is, how can we help, right?
Mm.
And I go through this
That's right.
myself sometimes, where I say, okay, do I give this person money? Because then, I'm like treading judgment here. Maybe
Yes,
that
and that's what
person is
we
going to,
do.
yeah. It's like, is he going to buy alcohol? Is she going to do drugs? And so I try to give other things. However, it's fall, it's autumn, whether you're British or, US, fall or autumn.
Mm-hmm.
It's winter. Maybe it's okay for them to have a bottle of whiskey to not freeze to death.
I told myself this a long time ago because I used to do the same thing that
Yeah.
judge what they're going to use it for. And I said, you know what? It's not for me to judge what they're using it for. It's for me to give.
Yeah.
It's just for me to give. If I give however they use it, if they use it for drugs, if they use it for alcohol, if they use it for food, they use it for clothes, that's their choice. I'm giving. It's my job to give. And however they may take it and give it to someone else. I don't know. It's not my concern as to what they do with it. If I want to give a meal, I'll give a meal. If I only have money to give, I give the money. It's not like it's kind of like if I give a meal, I don't sit there and watch them eat it to make sure they ate it. It's not if I give them socks. I don't sit there and watch them put it on to make sure they use them. So why do I make sure that they use the money in a certain way?
Yeah.
It's not for me to deal with that. It's for me to give and let them use it accordingly.
Because a gift is just that, right? You give it, and the minute it's gone, it's the recipient.
You have to let it go.
Can do whatever that they want with it. And when you give, let's say, 3 pairs of socks, maybe they will wear one, and the other 2 they use to trade with someone else.
Yes. Yes.
I think the most important thing is, and I'm just thinking about Goldilocks, who I think you know as well. She actually shared this in one of her pieces for the Los Angeles Tribune. How she ran into this homeless person, and then they ended up having a conversation. They went into some kind of diner together, and it wasn't much, but it was the human contact. I don't judge you because of your torn clothes. I don't judge you because you have not had a bath. And it was just a normal conversation.
Yes.
And she wrote about it. I sometimes wonder, this is going to sound mean, but I have to bring it up. when I see posts on social media.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, I gave this person
Yeah,
$1,000,
yeah, yeah,
and I'm like,
yeah,
okay, well, I'm glad you gave this person $1,000. I'm sure they deserved it. Probably they deserve more. Why do you have to put it on social media?
yeah, yeah. And it's funny because the scripture talks about that.
Yeah,
You don't need to brag about your good deed.
yeah.
Now, there's one person who did something that I thought I'm glad she posted it because
Mm-hmm.
she saw a homeless man outside of a grocery store.
Yeah,
And when she went inside, she made sure she got some extra stuff to bring to
yeah,
him. And she brought it out to him. And he was very grateful. But then what she did, she went back in, got the grocery store manager, and told her or him, this is what I did. I would love it if you all can do more.
yes.
And the grocery store manager did more. They brought out a whole cart of food for this person. I said, so that is wonderful because they start to get the community involved now
Yes.
and solve it. Because you and I both know that this homeless person, not only were they grateful, but they shared it with other people because
Absolutely.
you're not going to be homeless walking around with all that stuff and other people are wondering what the heck's going on. So they're going to share it with other people. And they
Right.
know that there are people who are living in that same way that they are, and they don't want any of them living
Right.
like that. So it's just one of those things that I was glad she shared that because I told her, I said, you inspired me to do something for someone today.
Right. And I think therefore that can be really, really important. I think, yes. So I'm going to, qualify what I said a little bit. Yes, we should post, or we can, and we need to post because it's the ripple effect.
Mm-hmm.
I just wonder if we need to post it with a video camera,
Yeah, I
because
know.
then
I'm
it's
with
more
you.
planned, right?
I mean,
So
I honestly don't know if it needs to be posted at
yeah,
all.
yeah,
You could easily say, do something nice for someone today.
hmm, yeah,
Give something to a homeless person today. You don't have to say I did. Just,
right,
just you can just say, hey, just
yeah,
do something nice. Give something to someone who deserved it today. That's all
yeah,
you have to do. You can just encourage someone that way.
absolutely,
Doesn't have to be boasting on yourself. And like I said, if you're doing it, thank you for giving. Thank you
yes,
for giving because we appreciate that. It's just that I get what you're saying, Natalie, because what in my opinion, and it's probably
hmm,
yours as well, you've made the giving about you and not about
yes,
what that person or those people need.
yeah,
So that's the thing. So
yeah,
that's a great way to wrap up the segment today here. So please make sure that you guys continue to give. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go into our spotlight of the day. But before we do, we're going to take a quick break. So we want you to stick and stay. We'll be right back with more of the World We Share, a global conversation. Let's face it, you've been talking about starting a podcast for quite some time, but you haven't started yet. Why is that? Could it be that you just don't have the time because your day-to-day keeps you so busy? Or could it be that you don't want to learn all the technical aspects that go into putting together a quality podcast? Well, at Media Boss Club, we take care of that for you. How would you like to have a done-for-you experience? That's right. At Media Boss Club, we build your podcast for you. We will edit your podcast. We will put in the music for you. We even put in commercial breaks that you can put your advertisers in. We will take care of all of the uploading to the great podcast platforms that are out there. That's right, we do everything. All you have to do is just right now go to MediaBossClub.com. That's MediaBossClub.com and let us handle the heavy lifting for you. All right, everybody, welcome back to The World We Share, a global conversation. I am Dr. Barrett Mathers, along with my very, very intelligent co-host, Dr. Natalie Forrest. So, Natalie, what is our spotlight of the day?
yes. So today I picked something completely different and
Ooh.
hopefully unexpected. And it is called, drum roll please, Pokemon. Because I have heard that when I grew up, Pokemon existed, it still exists, and people do Pokemon on the go wherever they are. So I think Pokemon, for whatever reason, still has a hold on humanity. And therefore, I believe, I've never really played it, but I
I've
believe
never done it either.
deserves a spotlight, especially because my daughter mentioned the other day when she was riding the train to school, she texted me, she said, there's this old man in front of me and he's playing Pokemon
Really?
Go.
Now, hold on. Old man to your daughter is what?
No, she actually explained it. I said, what do you mean old? And she said, well, he has a lot of wrinkles and gray hair. And then I said, well,
Okay.
sometimes young people have gray hair. And she said,
Yeah,
no,
get the
no, I'm
wrinkles.
pretty sure he's older. And I said, okay, honey.
Okay.
So, since this was, very different from the topic of homelessness, and I don't want to take away from the seriousness, but Pokemon on the Go is also a worldwide phenomenon, literally wherever you go. I want to invite everybody. Do you play Pokemon Go? Do you know about Pokemon?
Never.
And if you do, or if you don't, put it in our LinkedIn group or comment on the YouTube channel. Definitely, if you're not able to post where you are listening to us right now, we have the LinkedIn group and you'll see it in the description. Tell us, what do you think about Pokemon? And do you think Pokemon deserves a spotlight or not? In addition, tell us what other topics we should talk about. What other topics do you think matter in the world that we share? We're all in different places. What do we need to share next?
I love it. I love it. Oh, I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to reading what they have to say. So, guys, look, we want to thank you so much for joining us here today on The World We Share, a global conversation. Make sure, speaking of the world we share, make sure you are sharing this podcast with everyone. Let them know that you are a part of a global conversation yourself on The World We Share. So, I encourage you to do that. And I thank you so much, Dr. Natalie, for joining me today and making my life so much easier by doing this with me.
So much more fun.
Oh, it is fun. So we look forward to seeing you guys on the next episode of The World We Share, a global conversation. Goodbye.
Bye.